welcome to the show, which was Elder Law with Frank and Mary, but which we're changing. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And with me is my good friend, Shelby Marshall, who has been on the show before. And we're going to talk about what is happening specifically in Westborough, around Westborough's efforts to become dementia-friendly. So first of all, quickly, I've always called this show Elder Law, Frank and Mary, although I never talked about law. I always interviewed people like Shelby and other people that I thought that you as a senior, whom I thought you as a senior should know about here in Westborough. So I decided really what this show is about, has become about, is my friends Frank and Mary. I think I'm pointing to the right person. I've never used a green screen before. That's that. So we're calling the show Frank and Mary in Westborough. And the point of the show is that, like Frank and Mary, you too probably have a lot of concerns about making sure that you can live in your house until you die, be buried in the backyard, like many of my clients, like Frank and Mary, or live and stay here in Westborough, even if you start getting a little confused and your memory isn't so great, you know. And that's one of the purposes behind having a dementia-friendly community. So, as you know, Shelby's day job is she and her partner actually have a home care agency right at home, right here in Westborough. But also, Shelby, and so she's uniquely aware of these issues. But also, Shelby became a selectman this year. Topped the ticket. Congratulations.
Thank you very
much.
Great.
And really decided that, of course, that was one of the things she wanted to focus on. And Shelby had been very involved in the dementia-friendly community committee here in Westborough that was studying the needs in the community and developing recommendations. So I thought that, first of all, Shelby will be joining me, hopefully for all of these shows, for whenever she can come. We plan to invite additional guests as long as they can fit between us. They have to be thin. We're going to know no big guests here. And they're all going to be people either who are here in Westborough working on pieces of this initiative, or who are from other communities doing things that Westborough may be wanting to look at.
Absolutely.
That's kind of the goal of all of this, right?
Copying is the greatest form of flattery.
Copying is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Right. Lawyers, you know, every time I bring someone's documents to them, they say, "You just wrote this for me?" I say, "Well, no." So, Shelby, could you just talk about kind of where you are on all of this and where you feel that the town is on all of this? What the initiatives are that you think you want to be advancing over the next year, right? And then, if you can talk even a little bit to how people can get involved as you go through those initiatives, okay?
Sure, thank you.
And any new things that have happened, like the Lieutenant Governor being here yesterday to be
it's quite a day yesterday. Yeah. So we undertook as a community, so it's really a grassroots effort, and I think that's what certainly I want the viewers to understand, is that this
community, not a state effort, it's not a this is Westborough.
No, it's not even. I mean, it's not even sort of it's not even initiating out of town hall. This is a group of individuals who are citizens, who are part of our municipal government, who are part of our school system, who are business owners, who are just interested in understanding and are passionate about making sure that Westborough is a friendly place to age in. And our focus right now is on dementia, but I certainly envision that it expands beyond that over time. But that's for our next series.
Right, because dementia is just a subset. One of the unique things about an aging population is what a large percentage of them are either have memory issues or at least are really worried about them. It's one of the things about being older. Certainly, I see it with my clients all the time.
Sure.
You're worried about this stuff.
Right, exactly. So this committee formed just over a year ago, and I actually can't take credit for forming the committee. Actually, the committee itself spawned out of an initiative through Bay Path Elder Services, which is our area access aging point. And a team of folks there actually went to Minnesota.
Aging Services Access. This is legal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Aging Services Access Point.
ASAP. You got to have an acronym, right?
You got to have an acronym, right?
So they're based in Marlborough, and they service I don't know, 27.
Yeah.
So a number of towns, and their team actually.
14.
14.
Sorry.
I thought it was less, but I wasn't going to, on air,
yeah, I'm
right?
supposed to know this stuff. No. Okay. So you can see this is well rehearsed.
Exactly.
And these people are watching, and we're really well rehearsed here. Okay, go ahead.
So a team from Bay Path went out to Minnesota because Minnesota was the initial American model on dementia-friendly. So they went out, they studied it, they met with folks, and then they basically brought that program back here to Massachusetts.
Right.
So the
By
first,
the way, part of that team was me. I actually went.
oh, well, you know, I don't think I realized that.
Yes.
Well,
yes,
see, again,
yes.
very well rehearsed here.
Myrick O'Connell actually paid for part of that trip.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
we were I was really interested in it. So this is a good idea, right?
No, great. Okay, so,
yeah.
and I really didn't know that, so
Yeah.
that was not rehearsed. So, at any rate, that program came back, and of course, the communities that started at first, Marlborough, Hudson, and Northborough. So they sort of they were the first out of the chute. And then Westborough followed along, and George Barrett, who is a former selectman here, has been very active in the town, has lived here for many years. He really led that charge for our town. And
Yeah.
so he really started it and started to formulate the group, and then actually that's how I was invited to participate.
And that was a pretty big group, right, if I recall correctly?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it was, again, an interdisciplinary group from the beginning. And so it encompassed our Senior Center Council on Aging Director, Alma DeMange, our Assistant Town Manager, Christy Williams, representatives from the Police and Fire Department,
Your
our
school person,
Superintendent,
yeah.
Amber Bach. There are several individuals who are seniors themselves who have a variety of roles, are involved in civic organizations, volunteer at the Council on Aging, et cetera. And so we all got together and said, well, what is this dementia-friendly thing, and how can we help, right? And there were healthcare professionals as part of it as well.
Yeah.
So,
And especially, you think in ways that are unique to Westborough.
right, exactly.
They may apply other places, but they really work.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so this whole concept of becoming dementia-friendly isn't sort of, to your point, isn't like, here's the box and you open the toolkit and you just do that. It really is about discovering what is right for your community, because what works in Marlborough may not work in Westborough, and so on and so forth. So we started meeting over a year ago, and we, as part of the process, we had surveys. So we sort of there were several different phases of the program, if you will, and one was to sort of convene a group and sort of say, okay, here's what it is, and then we went out and did surveys. We surveyed over 80 entities in our community, comprised of religious organizations, municipal departments,
Yeah.
businesses,
Some healthcare professionals.
healthcare professionals and civic organizations. And there's a series of questions basically sort of asked, what do you know about this disease, if you will?
Yeah.
And then what would you like to have, what would you like to know more about? So, and is there a need? So the questions really, regardless of the entity you're interviewing,
Yeah.
were pretty much the same. And what we came back with was, in spite of the variety of folks and entities we interviewed, was the same. Folks wanted education. They wanted to know if someone that seems, for lack of a better word, to say, a little bit off, something's not right, they're confused. What do I do? What do I do? How do I interact? Who do I call?
Yeah. You want to do the right thing. You don't want to make a right.
Exactly.
Right.
And then the other piece was, where are there any safe spaces?
Mm-hmm.
So not just in that instant, but if I'm a caregiver, let's say I'm with my mom, and where can we go that's a safe space? Someone that's going to understand us and not necessarily really treat us differently, just treat us like we're regular. But it's going to be, not only is it safe, but an accepting space.
Because the last thing you want to do is stick up.
Right. Because
Nobody
I already
wants-
do, right?
Nobody wants to be, and who wants to be
Right,
embarrassed,
right, exactly,
Right, your
exactly.
hometown, right? You know a lot of people, yeah.
Right. So, so anyway, and I have to tell you, is I went out and did several of the surveys myself,
Yeah.
and I really thought folks would be like, you know what, that's very nice, but we're not interested in filling out your survey. And my experience was uniform across the others of our committee that completed the 80 surveys. Everyone was interested. Absolutely, we'll sit down and fill it out.
Yeah.
And yes, we're interested. Yes, we care about this. So this was great. This was across, again, town departments, salons, grocery stores, convenience stores, churches, et cetera. So there's an interest. And,
Right.
because we know that statistically it's probably about 1 in 10 over the age of 80 are experiencing some level of cognitive decline, regardless of whether there's a diagnosis.
And so just about everybody that you were surveying knew somebody,
Yeah,
whether it was
right,
a relative or a
right,
friend
or
or
an
somebody.
employee or
and they're like, oh, yeah, I've gone through that.
Yeah,
Right,
exactly. So we did the surveys, and then the surveys were, the data was analyzed, if
Yeah.
you will, by Bay Path Elder Services, and that was through a grant through the Metro West Health Foundation. They sort of supported the staffing, basically, to coordinate it.
Yeah.
And then the data, we brought back the data, and we said, so what does it tell us about Westborough? So I'm going to just refer to my notes here.
You got your notes?
So from that, we came up with a mission statement, and then sort of objectives from there. So our mission
Because
statement.
you continue to have this core group of really interested
Absolutely.
people. Right.
So, and we met about once a month. So, just for context for our listeners. So, our mission statement that we came up with was that dementia and age-friendly Westborough will promote a community where individuals with dementia and their caregivers will have access to the resources and support they need to safely live, age, and thrive. So there it is, right? So from that, then we
And
said,
who wouldn't want to live in that place? Right?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And so then we said, well, so that's our mission statement. So, like, what are our objectives? And so we came up with 5 objectives, and I'll just briefly go through those.
Yeah.
So we wanted to identify and deploy and publicize resources, kind of programs, and kind of a toolkit for that educational component. We want to promote the creation of safe and welcoming spaces. We want to promote dementia education and awareness through local media. Thank you, Westborough
Like
TV,
here,
right? So we're already starting that process. We want to reach out and engage and partner with local organizations. So the committee is just sort of like the hub, if you will, but there are lots of different entities who we might partner with, and that leads to the 5th piece, which is partner with the Alzheimer's Association to provide dementia education and training, because we don't have to recreate the wheel here.
That's right. We're not trying to cure dementia here. Somebody else is trying to cure dementia.
Right.
We're trying to help deal with dementia.
Right, exactly. Right. So those were our objectives, and so, and so that sort of was the outcome. And then we took a little bit of a break because summer came around and so on and so forth. And so we've recently reconvened as a group, and we took all of those objectives and started to outline actual projects that people could sort of wrap their arms and minds around.
Right.
And actually, since we created the objectives, some of the work has already started, which is really the exciting thing about being here today and being able to not only say, hey, we've done this work, we've sort of done the prep work, we're already at, in some ways, implementation. Right. So I'll pause there for a moment. You might have some questions,
talk about that.
Yeah. So
no, I think that's a great outline of kind of like where things came from.
Right.
And as I mentioned, I've been very interested in this, so Myrick O'Connell's been very interested in it, and that's why, as I mentioned to you, I said, and I've told my folks at Myrick O'Connell, I said, this is something we need to be involved in.
Right.
We are the biggest law firm in Westborough. There were
You're
20
based here.
There were 20 of us here.
Right.
There were 20. Well, there were 40 in Worcester. There's 20 here.
Yeah.
But that's a lot, you know. And so we need to be actively involved in this initiative,
Vested,
right?
right.
Which I think is really, really
absolutely,
important. Yeah.
absolutely. So I'll as time allows here, I'll go through a couple of the projects, and we can talk about those as deep as we want to go at this point. So one of the key pieces is to understand is that, and to not reinvent the wheel, is that we have a lot of great things happening at our Council on Aging. And so the folks that go there on a regular basis, they probably know about it. But one of the things that I felt very strongly about is that the people that are going there aren't necessarily the ones that need to know about it because they know. Right. It's the adult child that lives in Wellesley or lives in
San Francisco,
Ohio or wherever, right?
Yeah.
And so how do they know about it? So how are we kind of, so in some ways it's a little bit like repackaging and making sure that folks are aware that there's like a menu. So how we might visualize it would be, maybe there's on our town website, and again, we haven't fully vetted all this, but there might be a tab where it says Westborough is dementia friendly, and you click on that, and then sort of there's a kind of a menu of offerings.
That's a great idea.
Right.
So once again, the child from Ohio could just click on.
Right.
And say, Mom may be having some memory problems, or I've been talking to Dad about it,
Yep.
And so
and
what's
so I want
going
to tell
on?
Dad about
and
it.
I want to,
right. Dad's struggling. He's like, I don't know where to go. So I've never been.
Or
to
he's in
senior center.
denial, or he doesn't want to talk to us about it.
Right.
Oh, Mom's fine.
Right.
Everything's good.
That never happens, right? So for example, some of the great things that are going on already at our Council on Aging. First of all, the staff at the Council on Aging are trained as certified dementia practitioners. So when you're calling and you're talking about this topic, you're talking with folks that have been trained and they're informed. So that's important.
Or if you're stopping in.
Right. Absolutely. There is, Westborough launched a Sunshine Cafe. Sometimes they're known as memory cafes. So they offer that the second Tuesday of every month. So it's a safe place where Someone can bring someone with memory impairment, and it's a social setting, it's safe, and so on and so forth. There's some food, there's maybe some activity, there could be music, what have you. So that's that's safe social space we've already talked about.
And it's not a place where you'd be dropping off your loved one,
No,
but
no.
were you staying with your loved one?
Right,
So-
but you're talking with, like, so if I'm there with my mom, there's a social support element there,
Yeah.
and my mom is also, but she's also part of that process, for
Right.
example.
And I'm there, and I can also be talking with other folks who are also going through this.
Right.
And so we can be kind of sharing stories, so I'm not starting feeling like I'm alone.
Right, right.
And I remember we've talked about this. There's a memory cafe in Falmouth that the state folks have been using as kind of the model.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's run by this wonderful woman who's a psychologist, and that's her day job,
Mm-hmm.
right? But she said the whole goal of the memory cafe is you want to be feeling like you're at home. Memory may not be great, you know,
Right.
but you want to be feeling, that's the point, whether there's music, whether there's art, whether there's whatever it is. And so you're feeling like you're at home,
Right.
which means you don't have to be on your guard.
Right.
You don't have to be not talking
Right.
at all,
Right. Right.
or being boish, just to deal with the fact that you have some memory issues. You
Exactly.
can just be.
Right.
You can
right.
just, that's
exactly.
wonderful.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So that's exists. One of the programs that I think is fantastic that folks don't know about it is we have residential lock boxes.
Talk about that.
So we
This I think is one of those,
this is like a hidden gem.
If the point of this, and for me, a lot of the point of this is to being able to share this with other communities, because I go to a lot of communities, and to have, because everybody's learning something new
Absolutely.
and saying, oh, look at what they did
I'm
over
gonna do
here.
that, right.
This is really good.
Right, right.
And this is, to me, one of the gems in Westborough.
Sure.
Go ahead, go.
So if you imagine, sometimes you see these like at a construction site, or if you're selling a home but the owners aren't there. So sometimes it's known as a realtor's lockbox, but it's about this big, and 2 simple screws, mounts on an appropriate location, and you access it through a secure keypad, and there's a key in there. What happens is when there's an emergency call, I've fallen, or someone says, geez, the newspapers are piling up, I'm not sure what's going on at my neighbor's house, but something's not
Something's
right,
wrong. Yeah,
right? Or adult child out of town says, I can't reach my loved one, and they're calling to say, I need someone to go out
Right.
and make an emergency call. So typically our fire department are the first responders, right?
Yeah, so they're calling because I would assume you have a joint first responder.
Correct.
Right?
Yes,
So it's
centralized.
fire, right.
That's correct,
So they're
correct.
calling that number.
Exactly.
And in
And
your
typically
case,
that's
it's
a
the-
911
Yeah.
call, right? They're not
Yeah.
just dialing the business line.
And in your case, the responder is the fire department?
Yes, it is. Yes, and so they're
Did they show up with a fire truck?
they may, but
Right.
typically it depends on the situation. I mean, Chief
I didn't
Purcell
mean
would
to
speak to that.
jump in, so go
Yeah, no,
ahead.
but typically that's not a lights, sirens on. It's
Yeah, yeah.
they're showing up. But
Yeah,
again, Chief Purcell, we can have him on and talk about it.
Yeah.
He would be a great
Oh,
guest,
no,
by
he'd
the
be
way.
great.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll be next.
And this is an extension, actually. I'm not going to. Well,
Yeah,
let me.
go,
So the
go.
lockboxes. So first of all,
There
they're
are so many
free.
things to talk to you, and you're such a shy person.
I-
So I want to make sure we get everything. In. So
Nice.
go ahead.
Nice.
Go ahead.
So
You almost blushed when I said, you said, I can't believe he really thinks I'm a shy person. Go ahead.
So these are, first of all, they're free.
Yeah.
Someone from the
The
senior
lockbox.
center, will come out and install it.
Just
simple
because you say
screws.
you want one.
Right.
And they install it, and then what, do they put your name like on a list or something?
Exactly, and so there's a master key.
Yeah.
And so instead of when the fire department comes, instead of breaking down your door, which in lieu of someone
wants
coming
that?
to it, right?
Right,
It's
who wants
expensive,
that?
what have you,
Yeah.
startling. Hello, right?
We're just checking in. Bang! Right.
Exactly. House call. So they have, there's a master key.
Yeah.
And what I have since learned from Chief Purcell and his great team is that a couple years ago, Westborough invested in its fire trucks, and he'll tell the story better than I do, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping I'm representing
Yeah.
it, in a special entity in all of our, I'm going to say fire units. So
Yeah.
I think it's both on the ambulances as well. And it's a secure lockbox on the fire truck. And it's an electronic keypad.
Yeah.
And in order to access the master key that unlocks the lockbox,
Yeah.
they have to key in, so it's my identification,
Yeah, yeah,
Shelby
yeah.
firefighter 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I open it up, I go into the house,
Yeah.
and the truck will continue flashing blue lights until the key is back into the fire truck
I see.
and the keypad is relocked.
I see.
So because people go, oh, who's going to have a key to mom's
Who's
house?
going to have a key to
right?
mom's house? Right.
Super secure,
That's
timestamp.
great.
And I honestly just learned this yesterday about that component. So, and again, here's the other key part is that the fire department staff have been trained. We can touch on that, but they get it, right? They're interacting with these folks all the time.
So they've done this memory law, dealing with folks with memory loss
Exactly.
training.
Right, right. So you have the lock boxes. It interacts with the fire department,
Yeah.
and you're not breaking down the door, and there's a name on a list, right? So that's kind of one of those things that already exists. There's a program that we have through our senior center. It is limited because of kind of funding and staffing,
Yeah.
but it's called Caregiver Meals. So for folks that cannot, it's different than Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
But if folks that cannot get out, they can sign up for a caregiver meal program.
see.
So again, some
I
of it
see.
is just like making folks aware, like how would I sign up? Maybe I only
Right.
need something for a couple weeks, right? It's not
right.
an ongoing
And is there?
program.
Do I have to show I'm poor? Do I have to do this? Right. What's
Exactly. Like what
what's
is
the
it?
story?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then we have community outreach staff that can go. Mary Donna and her team go out and
Mary Donna.
Yeah, she's
What's
great.
What is her last name? This is
Corcoran.
Corcoran.
Yes.
What an amazing
Yep,
resource.
yep.
As
And,
an
and
outreach
Dennis
person.
Fenton, he's one of the outreach workers
Yeah.
too. He works particularly with gentlemen. He'll go out and
That's
hey, he's
great.
got a great voice. I don't know if he brings his guitar, but he's amazing. So anyway, so that's kind of just one aspect
Yeah.
of what we hope to achieve. And again, really, it's about creating awareness and making that information visible to the public. The other piece is creating a registry. So Marlborough has done this,
Yep.
and
Yep.
actually this part is already sort of out of the gate. And the fire department actually has already invested in software and a calling system. And I'm not going to kind of go too in depth because this
Yeah.
is going to be rolled out later in the summer.
Yeah.
And I think we should really invite
we'll
Chief
in-
Purcell.
we'll invite the chief.
He can really
Yeah.
talk about it. But this is a way where someone could self-register. Again, it's always with permission,
Yeah.
so that it's known that this individual has needs to be looked after.
Some memory issues.
Right,
Has some memory
exactly,
issues.
right. So there's a registry component there,
Yeah.
and here's the beautiful thing. Police and fire actually can see that file. So it's not like, okay, we've heard of someone that might be wandering,
Right.
call back, can you read the book?
Right.
Go to,
And does this have pictures with it?
yeah, and they can see it in their cars.
And that's so
it's,
good.
It's so, I was
And
actually.
I'm just going to give it
Yeah.
do a story related to that.
Yes.
Because we've done this in Marlborough,
Mm-hmm.
and the chief said one of the things that's so important, it was related to a police stop, right? So I'll go to a police stop
Mm-hmm.
because I'm stopped somebody, and the person turns out has dementia, right? But they're still driving,
Yep,
right? But they've
yep,
got dementia. And so what your natural reaction if you've got those issues is you're really agitated and aggressive,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Which is exactly the way you would be if you were a little drunk or stoned.
Right.
Right? And so I'm trained as a policeman to deal with drunk and stoned,
Yep.
which is get out of the car,
Right.
put your hands, right,
I've
exactly.
never done that, though.
The last thing
no.
you want to do with someone with dementia, right? Whereas if you're on the registry,
Right.
you check the license plate, boom, boom, boom. Oh, here's the picture. Oh, Mr. Bergeron.
Yeah.
Can I help? Can I help you?
Yeah.
Can I help you at home?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think your wife was,
Yeah.
calling.
You're feeling okay.
Totally changes things.
Right, exactly.
Now, and then we're going to have him on. I want you to get to the honoring choices piece,
Yes, yep,
just because I'm getting
absolutely.
a feeling that we're getting to the end of our time.
Because I talk a lot.
Because we talk a lot.
There we go.
Because we talk a lot.
Okay.
We'd be terrible at a party. This is like talking with one of my sisters. We're like, you never get to a period.
Right, right.
Everything is just like a comma. And then
We need our own table service. So we keep talking. Okay.
So talk about honoring
choices. So one of the legs of our projects of this initiative is a program called Honoring Choices Massachusetts. It was started by a woman called Ellen D. Piola. Her name is Ellen D. Piola, if I pronounce
That's
it
right,
that.
Piola, yeah.
And she, by trade, correct me if I'm wrong, is an attorney.
She's a lawyer.
Yep.
Lives in Weston.
And so she started this program, in essence, with the belief that everyone should have a healthcare proxy, should have a personal directive, which, although not a legally binding document, talks about kind of what do I want in terms
I
of
wanna
my,
be treated.
how do I
Yep.
want to be treated,
Yep.
not just in my end of days, but as I'm getting to my end of days. And also so important is to have conversation, take that, those are documents, if you will, but have the conversation about that with your primary care physician and with not only maybe your proxy, but those, your loved ones and
With
your
the
family.
kids.
Exactly. Not
Right.
easy conversations to have. But what happened was, so I went through training, so I'm a Honoring Choices facilitator,
Yeah.
and
And we're actually Myrick is one of the community partners statewide on this,
Right.
together with the Secretary of Environmental Affairs or Elder Affairs and a number of others. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So by participating in that training, we can then take that program in the toolkit and bring it to Westborough. And so what we envision, and Arthur, you and I have talked about this, is that we want to go out and actively find individuals in the community. This is not sort of a passive thing. Actively find in a professional way those, and we're sort of looking at those over the age of 70 who, and make sure they have a healthcare proxy, make sure they have the personal directive.
Right.
And most importantly, because those things, by the way, don't need to be completed by an attorney. Sorry,
Exactly.
that's not
No,
billable
exactly
time.
right. You don't need a big form.
No,
No,
exactly. And these forms are accepted in Massachusetts that come as part of the toolkit.
Right.
So the idea is to provide education to these individuals in the community, and then to be able to offer forms, maybe workshops. We're still working through the details.
Yeah.
To then complete the forms, and then say, go have the conversation with, as we have already talked about. The beauty of this too, is that we're not only looking at those 70 and over, because, by the way, moms and dads, if your child is going off to school and they're over the age of 18,
This being the day before graduation here,
right,
and moms
right,
and dads
exactly,
are thinking about this, right?
Your adult child, I guess, right? If they're 18, they need to have a healthcare proxy when they go away to school. They, personal directive, yeah, they're young, they're sort of invincible, et cetera, or they think they are, but that's an important piece to have. Exactly.
Right. And they need to have somebody that, if there is an accident there, that somebody
Absolutely.
can, because otherwise they can't call anybody.
They can't, because
They
they're
can't
just
call
kind of like you
anybody.
can't see the
'Cause
grades,
you're an adult.
right? You
'Cause
can't
you're
see,
an-
right?
That's right, you can't.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's a big deal. So this involvement of the kids, I think,
Yep.
and I think you had also talked about having the kids actually involved also in going out to some of the seniors.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I've even seen, I know the list we've been talking about the fact it's a defined project. There's like 1,800
Yep.
seniors and people over 70,
Yep. Absolutely.
and so we try to get.
So we want to reach out to them, and we've initiated the conversation with Amber Bach, our superintendent, about
Yep.
how do we engage with those rising seniors, so those
Yes.
who will be seniors next year, to
Yes.
bring this program and education to them, make their parents aware, and so that they now have this information and they can kind of send them off, we toss the cap and gown, and know that we've got the paperwork.
And we know that we want to initiate that in September, the start of the school year.
Absolutely.
So we're going to
Right.
figure this
Keep
out
doing
during
all
the
the work in
summer.
the summer.
And as I said, I want Myrick O'Connell is going to be really involved in this. This
Yep.
is a really, really important. It's the first
Absolutely.
community I know.
Yep.
Where you're actually going out to the folks and trying to enlist, as opposed to
Right.
just doing a few seminars.
Right,
Really
right.
important program.
And if anyone else wants to participate in that, we're welcome, because we're going to need hands on deck.
Speaking of
Yes.
which, as we discussed at the beginning, so we're going to have a thing, whatever they call
Below.
it, a
Right
bullet
here.
thing down
Right,
there or up there.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe they'll be holding it.
I don't know.
Right. Giving you the information where you can reach Shelby and
Yep.
reach the group.
Absolutely.
If you want to be involved in this. I don't know any community where there's more kind of sense of community participation than there is in Westborough. So I think it's just terrific. We're going to be, and thank you to Westborough Cable, we're going to
Yes.
be doing these shows monthly for this year. The goal is going to be that throughout this process, we're going to be updating you, having you learn about other people that are doing this here in town and in other towns. And then hopefully by next year, week before graduation,
Yeah.
we can talk about all the people who have done their healthcare proxies.
Absolutely.
Really focus. Thanks a million.
This
is
was
going to be a
fun.
lot of fun.
This is a lot of fun.
gonna
Next
be a
time,
lot of
bring
fun.
me a coffee, would
And
you
if you're
please?
interested in coming and you're thin, we may invite you to a show.
Or maybe we'll get thinner.
Oh, really? Oh, no. I'm too old for thinner. So thank you very much for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you next month. This is our June show. We'll look forward to seeing you in July. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank